As I stated, in hour number 2, we have American Fury John West joining us. But first up, hour number 1, we are joined by none other than a 5-time TNA World Tag Team Champion and also a 2-time NWA World Tag Team Champion. He is none other than SuperMex Hernandez. Shawn, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing over there?
Oh, we're doing really, really well. Getting through a lot of migraines and wacky weather up here in Indiana, where the weather keeps changing temperatures often. So, Shawn, I guess before we get this thing started, tell us a little bit about growing up as a little Hernandez. What was it like? What got you involved in professional wrestling in the first place? Obviously we'll talk about football and stuff too. You had some of that in your background, but tell us what got you into wrestling and who got you hooked, I guess.
My dad was a 30-year Green Beret veteran of the Army, and so we moved every 3 years up until I was like 12 years old. So I got to see a lot of different territories of wrestling because that was a big thing, when I was a little kid. You don't know anyone to play with because you got to change schools every 3 years. Your friends get changed all the time, but the only thing that stayed constant was pro wrestling. And I was very blessed to see Georgia Championship Wrestling, world class here in Texas, in Dallas with the Von Erichs, and Paul Bosch in Houston, and even AWA, out of I guess Milwaukee, But this instantly hooked as a kid, and it was awesome.
So did you actually get into any amateur wrestling as a youngster, or was it pretty much just you liked the show of the pro wrestling and just other sports?
Well, it was, all the places I went to school at, they didn't offer amateur-style wrestling. And a small tidbit, as I was training to be a pro wrestler in 97, and just that summer there, I trained for 2 weeks and won the Texas State Champion in Greco-Roman Wrestling in 1998.
Oh, wow.
And that was awesome for me. But the problem is, you have kids and you're married at the time. Winning trophies is not what you need to do. You need to be making some money. So, being a 25-year-old rookie in amateur wrestling is not the way to go.
No, not really. So how did you get into pro wrestling itself? Obviously talking about your younger days watching it, but what got you into making you want to be a wrestler, and how did you get your connection?
I was doing college football and arena football, and it wasn't working out. But I was still, working at the gym, trying to figure out my next move. And the WWF at the time came in town, and some local wrestlers came in. They were trying to, get a trial or a dark match spot on the show, and they saw me. They thought I was part of the group, but I wasn't, obviously. And I realized it was, you could have local wrestling here in Houston, basic training and stuff, and it was, from there I was hooked. I was trained by Tugboat Taylor and his son Chaz Taylor from the old Global Wrestling days.
So you mentioned that you played arena football. I guess, where did you go to college at, and then what teams did you end up with for arena?
Yeah, well, I went to Kilgore Junior College up in East Texas, junior school. I went to Division II school in Texas A&M at Kingsville, down the valley of Texas. The same school that produced, Hall of Fame John Randall, Earl Dodson, the used to play right tackle for the Green Bay Packers. It's like, legit who's who of Division II of who makes it to higher levels, man. It's an awesome school for football.
And who'd you play for the arena football? Did you play for a few teams or just one, or how'd that go?
It was okay. It's just that, I played for Houston Thunder Bears, but at the time they weren't affiliated with the NFL, so you were making $500 a week, not a game, but $500 a week, and there was 22 weeks and only 14 games, and when you have a child at the time, that's not covering no bills. I just had to get a real job.
Makes it for a tough living, that's for sure, man. So you got your training. You worked with Tugboat and Rudy Boy Gonzalez, huh?
I worked with Tugboat. He that's who initially trained me. And then, as you make your you make the ranks up through Texas, you go to San Antonio, because Texas is huge. And Texas, you go from Houston to Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, trying to catch people's eyes to get on shows, to make money, to get exposure. And, Rudy Boy was, I guess, the last trainer Shawn Michaels had, and, he was making trips to Ring of Honor and NWA Wildside and Georgia, so, I caught up with him, and it was okay. It got me a lot more exposure than I was getting on my own, put it that way.
Yeah, we had Rudy Boy on the show a few months ago. He was a lot of fun talking to. He had this quote for me. He says that SuperMex Hernandez is one of the most gifted big men I have come across. I feel he could have accomplished so much more if he went about business a little differently. What does that mean, Shawn?
I did, for whatever reason Mr. Gonzalez has a problem with me, I have no idea. And I really don't care. I mean, I've wrestled, I've did what I'm asked to do in every promotion I've been in. Nothing more, nothing less. This gentleman, I don't know, because I help run a small show in San Antonio, and he still runs a show in San Antonio, and it's not, his show draws probably, I think I can get in a car wreck on a Sunday night and draw more people than he can draw on a regular basis. It's very, very sad for the guy who has so much knowledge and so much training skills that to be that piss poor of a promoter. He should just stick to training and stop being so negative, and maybe his life would be a lot smoother for him.
So what about this incident, Shawn, where you broke your leg in Japan?
Well, I dislocated my hip. I did my big dive out of the ring, and that's I was every bit of 305. Went over the top. I overshot the guy and hit the guardrail. My shin hit the guardrail, busted open immediately, and I had you could see the shin bone legit, and I had to get 40 stitches on my shin, and then my right leg went over my left shoulder and just dislocated right there on the spot. This was 3 minutes into my opening debut at All Japan.
Oh my goodness. So what's your experience like in Japan? I mean, we talked to a lot of wrestlers, obviously, on the show, and had several that have gone overseas in Japan. And my friend Zane, who's homesick, I have to ask him, did you go to Ribeiro's Steakhouse?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think it's like, I think that's pretty much a requirement, and let's be realistic. I mean, I live in Texas, and I'm pretty positive where you live at, there's some excellent steakhouses that are better than this place. But just because, Japan and it's, I guess, pretty much, American style, food there for Ribeiro, makes it more famous than it really is.
Right.
I got my jacket, I got my little picture on the wall. It's very nostalgic and very, awesome just to be part of that whole, Gaijin culture that's been over there. It's awesome. But I mean, the food is, come on. I mean, I live in Texas. I'm pretty positive that I can think of at least 3 places where the steaks are better. But I mean, they don't beat the mystique of Japan.
I have yet to have a wrestler say that the food was any good at Ribeiro's. It's just the atmosphere and the attitude there.
Of course. I mean, the attitude is just to think that you're sitting in the same place that Bruce Brody.
So what about the wrestling itself? I mean,
I think you cut out.
Actual wrestling itself over there, compare that to American wrestling. Did you find it difficult to adjust, or?
No, of course. I mean, the fans study it like it's a sport. I mean, I wouldn't say like a sport, like it's like a movie or something like that. They need to know every intricate part of the whole match. Especially if they don't know you. If you really can wrestle. If you can. The applause does not come until like midway or towards the end of the match. And I mean, it's a big, big difference in, say, come out at, a TNA show or a big Ring of Honor or WWE show where they play the music and you get pops.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We're talking to SuperMex Hernandez. I'm going to kick it over to the Morning Star himself, Will Huckabee. Will.
Hey, yeah, good morning, Hernandez. How you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. How are you?
All right. My first question is, bringing into the business, being such a very big, physically imposing guy, how difficult was it for you? Did the guys, rib you a lot? Did they give you a really hard time when you were green? What was your experiences like first bringing it to the business?
Well, I may be kind of big when I first started, but now it's probably anywhere between 285 and 305. Came from a big powerlifting background. I was, probably squatting about 800 pounds at the time, and bench was like 5.5 and squat was 760, but didn't mean anything because one, I didn't know anything in wrestling, and two, believe it or not, I was like, maybe the fourth. There's only like 4 guys smaller than me in my wrestling class, and most of the classes that I was in, the tugboat school, had guys 350, 400, 450. So I mean, I got my share of ribbons real quick, real easy.
Okay, now, did you feel, once you started traveling and stuff, did you actually feel an added pressure to perform very well, especially with the history of all the great wrestlers who have come out of the state of Georgia, such as Tully Blanchard and Tito Santana and, of course, The Undertaker? Did you feel that pressure to perform, especially once you started traveling to the other states?
Not really. I mean, you're just trying to get your exposure, just get someone to know who you are. I remember, we used to take a van, Rudy would get all his students and then pick up myself and then pick up Luke Hawks in New Orleans just for, maybe a T-shirt, for wrestling in the Ring of Honor, just to get that exposure, just to get, everyone's goal is to make money in this business, so you don't make some money without having exposure. So, I mean, getting our name out there was a lot more important than, representing where we came from.
Okay, and I'm about to say, going to the Ring of Honor, how was that experience? The first time performing on the Ring of Honor card, how was that experience for you?
Well, ridiculous, man. I mean, no one knows who you are, and those about probably the meanest fans I've ever wrestled in my first 2 or 3 years in the business. And I mean, they let you know within like 45 seconds if they like you, hate you, want you to get off the stage. And I mean, it can be very, very a big overwhelming experience, especially if you're not prepared for that. Luckily, I had wrestling, not wrestling, I'm sorry, played football in front of bigger crowds, so that helped me adjust a little bit. But man, those guys, they know how to heckle you. I mean, I'm not going to mention no names, but there were some guys in our group that got heckled so hard that they were crying on that 25-hour wait home.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. I was going to ask you, because working the Ring of Honor, and maybe back then, it was a lot easier for you to work what I like to call the Texas style, especially with the caliber of guys they had back then, like Samoa Joe and Danielson and McGuinness. Did you think that you could have worked the ROH style that they do now? Do you think that you would have fit in now?
With my style, I think I could fit in just about anywhere. I mean, it's not really, it's if you're willing to make yourself look good and help the other guy look just as good, you can wrestle anywhere. I've seen the product a couple of times. I don't follow too much of U.S. wrestling that much, but I mean, because they, I have a show in San Antonio, and sometimes I've seen it in the morning before I went to go do my public appearances, like on radio stations and stuff, and it's not much different. It's, the guys are a little bit smaller, and they do a lot more high-flying moves. I mean, I think, I definitely think, if I were to take a different route in 2012, me and Homicide would have torn it up over there.
Speaking of Homicide, we also talked to him a few months back, too, and he really made a point to tell us how much he enjoyed his LAX days with you, and those were some of the best times of his career. What'd you think of your time in the LAX?
Well, of course. I mean, I came into LAX in 2006. I'm immediately paired with Homicide, who's, Ring of Honor legend, godfather of the whole East Coast indie scene. And I'm paired with Conan, who's, wrestling WCW, Puerto Rico, and is pretty much, the man in Mexico, especially he's, the know-all-be-all in AAA. And here I am, just this indie guy I was actually wrestling the Mexican indies at the time, and it was very overwhelming. I mean, these guys, they could have been jerks and just turn their back. But I mean, they really helped me get adjusted to the TNA style. And we had an amazing run for the first 2 or 3 years, man.
So how did you get noticed for TNA in the first place, and what kind of an adjustment was for you to go into that 6-sided ring for the first time?
Well, honestly, it was very hard to get noticed by TNA just for the fact that they were having problems filling the big guy role for LAX. Apollo from Puerto Rico was the first guy they put in the group, and I don't know, and it's none of my business. I mean, he was having trouble making that short flight from Puerto Rico to Orlando on a regular basis, so they had to let him go. And they called me, and I was in Monterrey, Mexico at the time, and I was doing I was doing a hair versus mask match, build up, and I wasn't available until February. They called me in January, and they got this guy, I guess, locally out of Florida, Machete, and he filled the role so I could get there. I mean, basically, it's just, part luck, part, being Hispanic, I guess.
Yeah, but you had that run with the Elite Guard first, though, right?
Yes, that was the Elite Guard thing in 2003. That was the direct result of working with Bill Behrens and NWA Wildside. I was running the Texas Indies a lot. I started, full speed in the Indies probably here about late '98, and I had about 4 or 5 tours in Japan, a couple of dark matches in WWE, but pretty much in Texas and just, spinning my wheels and very stagnant. And I just started going to Wildside, and Bill, pretty much redirected my career. Bill Behrens, he was one of the few guys that were very straight up with you, that would tell you need to do this, this, and this to make it to the next level. And either you can listen to the man or not. But I mean, the guys, whether you guys like him or don't like him or whatever, every guy that he's trying to help has made it to the next level. Whether they sit there or not is up to them. But I mean, he's just guiding them there. And he's the main reason why he saw me on TV.
Speaking of NWA Wildside and stuff, I was going to ask you about that. What was one of the most important things that Bill Behrens actually taught you and stuff and showed you?
When I first went to Bill Behrens, I just got back from a tour in All Japan, and All Japan was interested in me being part of the roster full time, but they told me I need to work on more of my transition, mat wrestling, and just get more experience. And in Texas, no promoter is going to tell you that because they want you to be, at the time at least, or no one wants you to improve because then you would cost more money and leave. So why help you improve? But Bill, he's laid out. Look, you want to make it the next level, you have to, get better. I'm sorry, it was conditioning, breathing, your cardio. I had to get better cardio. I had to get better transition and also better mat wrestling. And he told me if I worked on those 3 things, that the next level, whatever company it is, I will at least have a shot to get in the door. And he said pretty much take it or leave it. You can either come here and learn and wrestle and learn, or you can keep trying on your own. And like I said, this guy's helped so many guys at least get tryouts and different things to next levels. I mean, you'd be an idiot not to take them up on the offer.
Yeah, I was going to say, nowadays they're actually showing a lot of the old NWA Wildside TV tapings on YouTube and on their local TV show. Do you ever get a chance to actually go back and watch those?
Well, no.
I actually went back and watched it. I think they were all 2 weeks ago. They actually had a match of yours 2 weeks ago.
Well, the main thing is, one, I leaned down really, really hard. I'm right now about 235. Lowest I've been since I've been a sophomore in college. And 2, I don't want to be reminded of those 12-hour trips each way for that, that double-digit payday.
Trust me, look, I take that trip also for that double-digit payday to talk to Bill Behrens.
I do. I appreciate anything and everything that Bill Behrens ever did for me. He's a big influence in my career, but brother, I don't want to never ever go back to those days.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna be down there talking to Bill this weekend. I'm actually on the show this weekend for Bill, so I'll go ahead and tell him that you mentioned him.
Please tell him, exactly what I said. I mean, Bill Behrens is, in my opinion, is gold for my career.
Now, once you, how would you, or what was your response, or your emotions and stuff once you got that call to go to TNA? How was you feeling that day? How did that come about?
Well, it was very awkward because, I mean, I'm in Mexico and no one has my number down there. And, Bill sent me an email, hey, TNA wants you back. This is 06. This was the second time. And I was just delighted because, I mean, ready to bounce off the wall because, when you're, I mean, double-digit paydays in the States is pretty rough, but try wrestling on the Indies in Mexico and living down there, and you don't know what the meaning of struggle until you get down there on the Indies. You'll beg to be back on the double-digit paydays with Bill Behrens driving 12 hours each way.
Shawn, I was going to ask you. You've been pretty much put mostly in a role as far as TNA goes, at least, that as a tag team wrestler or tag team specialist. In the grand scheme of things, do you enjoy tag team wrestling, or did you prefer being a singles wrestler more?
Well, I came into TNA as a tag guy, and I was blessed to be in my opinion, it may be different from yours or anyone else you listen to, but I mean, at the time, there was no bigger and better tag team than LAX at the time. And to be put right into that group, and we just gel like magic, all three of us, with Conan on the mic and myself and Homicide doing all the wrestling. I mean, I was happy. I mean, as coming into wrestling, from training on to making it to any level, is you want to be the top dog, whether it's WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, or your local indie. You want to be the head champion. I've had those aspirations, but I mean, when I was having such a great time, be with LAX, be on every house show, every TV show, every pay-per-view. The bonuses were very good. The merch sales were very, very good. So I mean, I was happy. If it just stops on tag, I'm good. I'm not a greedy man.
So when you finally did get a chance to wrestle singles, obviously it was primarily after your tag team broke up with Matt Morgan. Were you happy with the run, that you had with singles with Matt Morgan, where they had you as the face initially and then you were injured and came back as a heel after he had turned face? I mean, were you happy with that program, or would you like to see other things go on with it, I guess?
Most people, when they have their wrestling career on television, it's usually their last half of their career that they're the most happy with or most proud of. And mine with TNA is the exact opposite. The first 4 years of my career in TNA was awesome. Well, especially the first 3 years was just great. And then, then you get, you don't understand the politic part or the deception part where you're promised something, and what do you do when it doesn't happen? And when you be signed and they promise something and you believe what they're going to tell you and it doesn't happen, it becomes very frustrating. And, I've been, from 2011 to May of this year, it's been just painting.
Obviously, you did have tough times there towards the end of the run, but did you have any I guess, solace in working with Chavo Guerrero for a while?
Oh, Chavo was fun. I mean, it was great. Chavo taught me the WWE style tag wrestling when you slow it down a little bit, and it wasn't the way they presented the group was not how I would have presented, or even Chavo or anybody who's trying to make money would present it. You're just throwing us out there with, expecting us to get over as 80 generic baby faces, with this a lot of rah-rah with this day and age with promos and, cool heels and stuff like that. and they're getting all the cool promos and vignettes, and you're this hokey, yay, let's go team, 80s babyface team. Of course, there's going to be a lot of negativity, especially crowd-wise. No matter how clean your work is or how good your work is, I mean, if you're that hokey 80s, babyface style with no promos and stuff like that, and you have these cool heels like Bobby Roode and Austin Aries and all those guys who face like that, where they get to cut all these cool promos and you just got to stare like a bunch of jerk-offs and ha, we'll see you in the ring. That sucks. But, actually 10 minutes was great.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We are talking to SuperMex Hernandez. So, Shawn, you had a successful run with Chavo right before the end. And then Chavo got his release, and a few months later, you got your release, which I found that strange. I found it strange when Bad Attitude had the same thing. They had a pretty successful run, and then all of a sudden they were gone. What was the reasoning they gave you for letting you go?
Actually, for myself, my contract was up May 12th of 2014, and as it is, it's like October now? It's October 14th. The last time I spoke to anybody verbally in that office of TNA was probably November. I was on their payroll for 6 months and no one spoke to me. The only way I knew I was even part of TNA was I get paid, I get my check every month, and I would every now and then randomly look up online and see that my face is on the roster page, and that's it. I mean, legit. No one spoke to me. I would
you make sure your profile was still there.
Yeah, I would email Bob Ryan every month and give him a list of my 80 dates that I would like approved. But that was the only contact I had with the office since November of 2013.
So you knew it was coming to an end, right?
But to be honest, I might still be on the payroll. I don't know. No one's contacted me. I mean, I sent, what was it? No one's contacted me. I sent, some thank you. I sent a thank you text. Dixie probably when it went down because actually I thought the date was May 14th, and it was actually May 12th. I woke up and my Twitter page was just flooded with, I'm not on the show no more. And so I said, okay, whatever. And I texted her, I said, thank you for the 8 years and all that, and I'm still waiting for a response.
We'll kick it back over to Will Huckabee before we get to our final segment with Hernandez, the kick out or tap out. But let's kick it back to you, Will.
Yes, I really want to know how's your experiences working in AAA and in Mexico with such great legends like Cybernetico and La Parca and Conan. How much fun was that?
But that was 2010. Except for LAX, is easily the most fun time I've ever had in my life. I mean, these guys were all very cool, down to earth. Once they realize you can wrestle and you can entertain and you can entertain big audiences. I mean, they averaged 8,000 to 20,000 people for TV taping. It was like, are you the best friends in the locker room? Because, I mean, everyone's cool. They just wanted to put on a great product, and that was it, where the politics was kept to a bare minimum. Because at that time, there was just Conan, Moody, the booker, and the owner. So there was no other people to be cutthroat or play a political game. And it was awesome. I mean, can you imagine, I get to wrestle for 20,000 people, for Triple Mania in 2010. It was just absurd. I mean, in TNA, the most I've wrestled for was, 10,000, maybe 11,000 people. So, I mean, imagine wrestling for all those people on a regular basis and having fun and getting paid. It was like literally living the dream.
So what was the big difference between working in Japan, working in America, and then working in Mexico?
In Mexico, that's hands down the rowdiest crowd I've ever wrestled for in my life. People can say what they want to. I mean, England's up there. Don't get me wrong. England is up there. Those guys are pretty rowdy when they get drinking, but there's nothing worse if you're the heel in Mexico and you're wrestling in front of 20,000 people and they start drinking and they start, chanting things and throwing things. And I mean, one time I got hit by a block of ice as big as an iPhone in the back of the head. Because I was taunting the crowd, and as soon as I turned around and watched the match, they threw literally, it was about as big as an iPhone because they bought it from the guys selling beer that was keeping the beer cold. They bought the piece of ice and chunks of it.
Wow.
I mean, the back of my head looked like a Tom and Jerry cartoon where they hit you with a hammer and the little lump comes up like it lumps up. It lumped up within seconds. Of course, I'm talking trash. Yeah, I'm SuperMex, and then of course I had one eye on the match and one eye on the next piece of ice coming, of course. But that crowd was ridiculously awesome.
Now, I started watching a lot of Mexican wrestling right around that time. When you refused to speak Spanish on these shows, whose idea was that you would have a translator and you would basically refuse to speak Spanish or act like you understood Spanish? Whose idea was that?
Well, that's obviously the creative team of Moody and Conan. I mean, you have a big Hispanic man that's Mexican, coming to your town. I mean, coming into your organization that can do a lot of cool moves like, border toss and throw people, and do dives. You have to make it personal to what these people do not want to cheer for me. Especially if they, let's be realistic, unless you are a Smart Mark fan in Mexico and you really don't know that much about TNA at all, because TNA has a very, very, very small TV deal with a very small network that some people don't even get in Mexico. So, in AAA, they travel just like WWE all over the country in Mexico. So, there's a good chance that probably when I first went to AAA, less than 10% of the crowd knew who I was.
Yeah, like I said, that was when I actually had friends and stuff who was really big in the Lucha Libre style. And I thought that was so original and so creative. Were there times that you actually had legitimate death threats? Because I can imagine there were a lot of Mexican fans who knew you were Hispanic and took it as a very disrespectful. How many death threats did you get on a weekly basis for that?
Brother, it can be bad. I mean, as far as the, not death threats, but I mean, it can be, close to death threats. I mean, where there's, things that are happening that shouldn't happen,
Can you give us an example?
Mexico was can be very, very good to wrestling, but if you abuse it, the Mexican people can find a way to make your life extremely miserable. And the good thing about, as far as the AAA shows, they know what, the fans really know what to show. So, I mean, as long as you're not a jerk in public, these people love you. Because, I mean, you're entertaining them, and they really, really, really appreciate the heroes, whether they're heels or baby faces or heels.
Before we wrap up with kick out or tap out, I wanted to ask you, I guess, one more question in regards to kind of tipping into what Will was saying. With your Latino heritage, and especially with TNA, you always got typecast in the Hispanic role. Does that bother you after a decade of wrestling for that company, instead of always having to typecast you all the time?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm very very proud of my heritage. I got my last name tattooed on my back. I've got, most of my tattoos are in Spanish on my body. I guess it's more of the deal where you have 50, late 40s, early 50-year-old white men tell me how to be Hispanic. That's more the kicker than, being typecast as the Hispanic guy. Because, I mean, let's be realistic. In all of wrestling, we've never really had our Latin Goldberg or Latin Brock Lesnar. And they've had a chance many, many times to put me in a role like that. And they chose to make me, tag champ for the upteenth time because, for whatever reason, either they don't understand the culture, want to understand the culture, or just don't really care. I don't understand. And this is not my place to say because, when it's all said and done, my house is paid off, my cars are paid off. So, I mean, I'm not a greedy man. I made their money. They made the money off me. As far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to shake my hands and walk away and walk up to my next adventure in life.
This is the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We're talking to SuperMex Hernandez. Before we let you go, we're going to try to get you into the kick out or tap out segment where I rifle off about 10 quick questions for you. Hopefully you'll answer them with very brief answers.
Okay.
If you can handle it, Shawn.
Okay. How many questions do we have so I can warm up?
10 very quick questions, but it could get hot in here, Shawn. You might get burning up down here in the Texas heat with this stuff. So I hope you can kick out and you don't tap out. Okay. Better creative, Bill Behrens or Vince Russo?
Well, obviously Vince Russo.
Okay, number 2, better tag team partner, Homicide, Anarchia, or Chavo?
My brother, Homicide.
Worst stable, the Elite Guard, Latin America Exchange, or Mexican America?
What you say? Mexican America, bro. Come on.
Who is the best wrestler that you worked with during your days in TNA?
I won't get a choice. Oh, I got to say myself. Kurt Angle, hands down.
All right, let's get a little hotter here. Who's the worst worker, that you worked with during your days in TNA?
Oh my God. It'd have to be my partner, Mexican America.
Okay. Number 6, the better trainer, Tugboat Taylor or Rudy Boy Gonzalez?
I would pass them both.
What is the most important championship that you held during your career? What meant the most to you?
The very first one with Homicide, when we were the NWA champions, we were the first Latinos to hold that belt and tag belts.
Okay, number 8, is Dixie Carter a competent wrestling promoter?
Yes. The problem is the people she hires have hidden agendas.
Okay. Number 9, who's the biggest jerk you ever worked with in TNA?
There's too many to choose. I mean, and it's not in the wrestling capacity. I would say it would have to be people in upper management. That's kind of rough, man. I mean, it's not really rough.
I understand.
Picking. It's picking which one, because there's about 3.
Okay. Final question, the most important one, and Shawn, you're ripping through this. You're not going to tap out, and I know you're not going to tap out on the last one. Who's the hotter babe, Rosita or Sarita?
With all apologies to Rosita, it has to be Sarita, bro. Have you seen her lately? Oh my God. This young lady is, she's a Canadian in Mexico, and she's on a huge health kick, and she has her own YouTube show for fitness and stuff. Brother, you could wash your clothes off her stomach. You just look at some of her recent photos. You'll be amazed.
I tell you what, Shawn, about a month ago, we were, the Undisputed Wrestling Show was up in Fort Wayne for a fan fest, and Miss Trinidad was there, and oh my gosh, the TV does not do that young lady justice. She is beautiful.
I totally agree. Miss Dia is a very, very, very attractive young lady, but just for my personal taste, it would have to be Sarita because, one, Rosita, she's a sweetheart, and she reminds me more of, a daughter than anything because she's so tiny. And, maybe if I was like 10 years younger, that might be different.
No, I would actually like to thank Mr. Hernandez for being on the show. We know that you have other things to do and stuff. We really do appreciate it. I'd like to speak for myself, Rick, and Zane when I say hopefully we can have you on the show again and talk some more. How does that sound?
Not a problem, man. It was a big eye opener. I didn't realize it was going to be this heated. But brother, most interviews I do, are pretty much, softball questions, cookies and cream, and y'all said, fuck it, we're going to go right for the heart. I like it. I mean, dude, keep bringing it.
Thank you very much. We like to think that we do our homework here and ask the questions that other people don't ask so we can get exclusives here.
Well, you guys did your homework, I promise, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for being on the show, and I'll definitely let Bill know that you said hello, all right?
Shawn, we appreciate so much you joining us tonight. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and great respect to you, and best of luck and good wishes to whatever you do next.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. You guys have a great
Thanks,
evening.
buddy.